What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Twigger, and I have another high ELO commentary for all of you to watch, featuring EDG's Deft. So this is Edward Gaming, one of the Chinese teams, and you might be wondering, because this is actually on the Korean server that these guys are playing. Right now it's EDG's Deft and also EDG's Pawn, and it's actually going to be kind of cool because Pawn is playing Aurelion Sol in the jungle. Both of these guys, Deft being the ADC laner for EDG, and also Pawn being not the jungler but the mid laner for EDG. So it is on the Korean server because Deft and Pawn are both Korean. What I'm assuming is happening here is that they are both taking a break from their season, and they are currently in Korea, just kind of playing some games and getting some practice in. But as you guys might know, Edward Gaming did in fact play second in the 2016 LPL. In the spring playoffs, they actually lost 1-3. It was Royals Never Give Up who ended up beating them in that one. So a second place finish, definitely nothing to scoff at. These guys are phenomenal players, and Ezreal is actually, I think, the second most played champion just in the cumulative professional scene for Deft. I think Lucian is actually the top for him. He didn't really play it a whole ton in the 2016 season, but this guy plays a mean Ezreal. And I'm excited to be seeing him playing alongside a Longzhu member, especially somebody who's playing as Sona, because I don't know if you guys have ever faced an Ezreal Sona lane, but my goodness, the amount of poke that can come out of that lane is unbelievable. So it'll be interesting to see how Lucian and Braum deal with that one. But a fairly early start going for this Grump. Deft and Pure definitely going for that early level 2, but it looks like it's going to be also mirrored on the other side with both Braum and Lucian picking up the Krugs on their side. One thing I'd like to talk about as well, just the combination of Lucian and Braum, and I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen this, and why it's so strong is that their passives synergize so very well with one another. If Braum gets an auto attack or a Q off onto one of the enemies, as you guys can see, the procs come up here, you hit them another 3 times and that will stun the opponent and deal additional magic damage. Why they work so well together is that if Lucian uses an ability, he gets 2 auto attacks off, which will count as 2 attacks onto Braum's passive, which we're going to see right there. So you can activate Braum's passive very, very easily with Lucian's passive as well. So that's why this is such a strong lane, just in case anybody was wondering that one. But fairly aggressive lane from Lucian and Braum, facing a fairly poke-heavy lane out of the Ezreal and Sona. But let's go over the champions a little bit here. Up in the top lane, we have a Trundle versus an Irelia. Fairly standard top lane. A very aggressive top lane, I would say. Normally, just in the top lane, you have 2 wet noodles kind of beating around with each other and not making anything happen. But Irelia and Trundle, both 2 pretty heavy damage-dealing champions that are going to be tanky, but also very bruiser-heavy. So we could very well see a kill up in there fairly early. And we see they're already kind of like going at one another with their corrupting potions. They don't really care about taking harassment. They can heal it all up. In the mid lane, we have an Azir versus a Zed, which also phenomenally scary lane. Both champions do a ton of damage. Both have a phenomenal amount of mobility, and I think both of them know. It looks like the Azir running the defensive summoner spell with the exhaust, while Zed, of course, running Ignite to try to pick up some kills. In the jungle, we have EDG's Pawn on the Aurelion Sol, which will be very cool to see. And we have Kha'Zix on the other side. Aggressive junglers, but Aurelion Sol, I think, has the better ganking potential with his Q. But, of course, you get isolated damage from the Kha'Zix, and good luck surviving that. And then, of course, we've talked about the bottom lane a ton. The Sona Ezreal versus the Braum Lucian. So, not entirely sure that either one of these teams really won the draft. I think both teams are valid in their own right. I think that the blue team overall is going to lack a little bit of wave clear. But then again, you know what? I look over at EDG's side, and I think they're going to lack the exact same thing. They only have a couple champions that do any type of AoE damage. So I don't think either of these teams are really going to want to siege. I think what these what these teams are going to be looking for in general is both of them are going to be looking for fights and looking for picks and trying to find advantageous fights that they can use their strengths to take down the enemy team. Of course, like the Irelia and the Zed want to pick somebody off. The Aurelion Sol just wants to provide a lot of support plus damage. But it looks like Irelia is going to be the first gank of the game. The Trundle Pillar going down. Not really going to lock her down for very much at all. She still has her flash available as well, using her Eon to the Kha'Zix. The flash coming out of the Kha'Zix trying to get this kill. Looks like Aurelia is still alive, and Aurelion Sol's now here getting the red buff procs. And look at the W procs currently onto the Kha'Zix. Has to jump away, but the flash coming out as Pawn as well. Is going to continue in on this one, bringing the W back, but might have bitten off a little bit more than he can chew. Tries to get the stun, but the first blood going to the Kha'Zix. Aurelia is now TPing back in here, but it looks like Pawn is going to be able to take down the Trundle just by the minions, it seems. And it looks looks like Aurelion finally picking up the kill onto the Kazakhs, and while all that's going down, the flash having to come out of the Azir, dodging the shuriken from the Zed, with the ignite going down, also having to burn his flash and his exhaust to keep away from that Zed. But kind of an interesting fight there. Looks like Aurelion played that really, really well, getting away from the Kazakhs and the Trundle, burning a couple flashes as well, but then it looks like Pawn just got a little bit too aggressive, was doing a lot of damage from a very long range with his W, but of course when the Trundle and the Kazakhs decide to turn on him, he is isolated, so the Kazakhs damage doing an insane amount to him. Looks like we might get a stun here onto the Sona. We are going to see the stun. A lot of damage coming down. The exhaust going down onto the Lucian, trying to keep him off of the Sona. He looks like Deft is not going to get stunned, but it looks like Aurelion now invading the jungle of Kazakhs, using that ultimate, doing incredible amounts of damage, and that is going to be a kill onto the Kazakhs. Great little roam from Aurelion, who just hit level 6 to find the Kazakhs and get a free kill on that one. Very, very nicely done. And that's setting Kazakhs back quite a bit, now being 1 and 2. Kind of an interesting that I want to point out here. Well, a couple interesting things, especially though, about these top laners. First of all, Irelia opting to go for the Boots of Swiftness first. That was the first item that she completed, was the Boots of Swiftness. So, very, very interesting buy. Definitely favoring her mobility, maybe to try to get away from the Trundle pillar when he locks her down. But it definitely helped her there, running into the jungle to pick up the Kazakhs and being able to keep up with him with those boots. But another kind of crazy thing is Trundle going for the Cull. And normally you only see that on ADCs, just like this Lucian. You're seeing the Cull on him now because, of course, utilizing the Cull gets you a certain amount of gold after you hit, I believe it's 150 minions. It really helps with your gold if you're looking to have a more expensive item build, but of course it definitely hurts your early to mid-game trading with people who are buying more advanced items, but I don't normally see that on top laner, so be curious to see what Trundle's planning on building. It looks like he is already probably going for the Sterix Gauge, but might very well be turning that into a Hydra as well. I'm not entirely sure. We're just going to have to see how that one progresses. But Zed already going for the early Hex Drinker. Definitely makes sense going up against an Azir, a very heavy magic damage target. And it looks like Azir with the Amplifying Tome. I would not be surprised to see that turned into a Seeker's Arm Guard to go for a fairly early Zhonya's Hourglass, because that's basically the counter to Zed. You get Zhonya's Hourglass, and then his ultimate, if you play it right, should never really kill you. But, you know, that's going to postpone things like his Stinger to his Gnasher's Tooth, which you might want to get. Might want to turn that into a Fiendish Codex to try to get some early cooldown reduction. Not entirely sure. Ezreal ultimate missing everything but the minions, so probably just going to come in here, try to clean up as much as he can, taking a turret shot for his troubles, but doesn't really matter. He's got Sona there to heal up for him. Deft is currently incredibly low on mana, but the crescendo coming out immediately, the ignite going down onto the Lucian as well, trying to heal up with the Brahms Relic Shield, and that Relic Shield proc is going to be enough to keep him alive. Are they going to be able to get it? No, they're going to dash away, and that is going to be no kills. But it looks like Pawn now coming in with his incredibly large Galaxy, trying to get the stun. Not going to make it, though. The ultimate coming down from Aurelion Sol, all onto the Trundle, taking a lot of turret shots, so going to have to run away from this one. Aurelion not really getting in on that one, which was surprising considering that Aurelion Sol was kind of tanking that entire turret. But, you know, okay, team communication, maybe not the best thing in solo queue, but that's kind of what happens. I feel like they might have been able to get a kill, but I'm not entirely sure which champion the Trundle ulted. If it was the Irelia, that's probably why she didn't want to dive in, because of course you lose all of your tanky stats because of that ultimate from Trundle, so that might have been why she didn't want to be as aggressive. But Aurelion Sol having to go back. Picking up the Poacher's Knife, which definitely makes sense, but it looks like he's going to be turning that into the Runic Echoes, which, once again, makes a lot of sense based on the fact that he is an AP jungler and wants to do a little bit more damage and have a little bit more movement speed to walk around the jungle with. But the Poacher's Knife, of course, great for ward coverage. He currently has the Warding Trinket plus the Poacher's Knife, so an available 4 wards plus the pink ward that he has in his inventory. So definitely playing more of a supporty jungler, but we're seeing, once again, these two top players going at it. The ultimate coming out from Katarina. Trundle has no ultimate, just used it in the last fight, and that is going to be Irelia on a killing spree. If Trundle had his ultimate, that probably would have been a dead Irelia, but Irelia just playing this so well, knowing that the cooldown was not available for Trundle, and just securing a very, very easy kill on that. Running down the CS a little bit, though, phenomenally even in the top lane, 67 to 67, 34 to 37 in the jungle, but not going to talk about that quite yet, because we have a jungle and a mid lane coming down. The Galaxy is not really going to land on anything, but Lucian taking a lot of damage, not behind that Braum shield. The Zed ultimate going down onto the Lucian, but it wasn't even required. Pawn taking a lot of damage from the turret, has to flash away. Trundle did teleport in, your Kazakhs flashing to try to use his W to get the kill onto Pawn, but the Trundle pillar is now actually affecting the Trundle. Trundle flashed in to try to get his chomp down onto the Aurelion Sol to finish off the kill, but his own pillar blocked him. Oh, man, that is unfortunate. So I like what the Trundle did there, trying to lock the Aurelion Sol down with his pillar so that way Kha'Zix could come in, but man, his own pillar trolled him. Talk about the king of troll when you control yourself with your own pillar. But it looks like the first turret of the game is going to be going in favor of that red team. Deft picking that one up after that great engage in the bot lane. Zed trying to do a little bit damage with those Thunderlord procs. Zed now going very ham onto this Aurelion Sol, but Zed does have his ultimate available, trying to do some damage. Don't know if it's going to be enough. No, not going to be enough. The Ignite, though, was the Ignite used? Was used just there, but not quite enough to pick him up. I did see the Zed ultimate go down onto the Lucian. But I guess since Lucian died so quickly, it didn't even really matter. Oh, the flash having to come out of the Zed, making it out with barely any HP. The Aurelion Sol ultimate coming down, but it looks like a great dash coming out of the Irelia. Gonna pick off the Azir. Aurelion Sol very, well, he got killed, but the stun going down onto Irelia as well, and that's gonna be a shutdown in favor of the Kha'Zix, getting him a little bit more into this game at 3-0-2. Sona trying her hand at trying to kill somebody, but looks like might have bit off a little bit more than she can chew now. She's got that slow from the Braum. Kha'Zix will have the isolation damage on her, but the crescendo coming out, gonna stop that one. But Lucian is now here, does not have his ultimate available, but once again a great Braum Q is gonna land, and Kha'Zix is gonna pick up his 4th kill of the game. Man, this has been a very swingy style of game. It's just been some great plays from one team and then great plays from another. The Aurelion Sol ultimate coming out upon almost killed the Azir, but just barely he survived. And then Irelia did get a great double dash onto the Azir, but sadly it just wasn't enough. Got the Azir down, but then of course you get stunned up by the Braum and the Kha'Zix with isolation damage and you're fucked. But Deft now going in onto this Lucian. We are going to see the ADC 1v1. No, we're not, because Kha'Zix is going to be here. It looks like Ezreal is just going to Arcane Shift away from that one. Doesn't want to fight the bug and the Lucian all at the same time, so he's just going to get out of that one. Very, very smart play. But in terms of CS, where we got cut off before, 91-84 in favor of the Azir in the mid lane, so fairly even, but a little bit of an advantage growing for that Azir. And then in the bot lane, 94-80 in favor of Ezreal, so bit of an advantage built up from Deft. But we've got to look at some of the damage dealers here. It looks like the Aurelia 4-1-0, Aurelion Sol 2-2-3, but the Kha'Zix on the enemy team, who started this game off pretty poorly actually, sitting at 4-2-0. So, gonna be interesting to see what he tends to build into. He does already have his warrior enchantment completed onto that skirmisher saber. But, oh no, Sona might be a little bit caught out here. Luckily, the Braum Q did miss, so she didn't get stunned right away. It looks like Ezreal now trying to dash in on this one using the Arcane Shift. Aurelion Sol is gonna get his ultimate down. Arcane Shift is not gonna be quite up yet, but it looks like the auto attack is gonna be enough to slay the Lucian. They're trying to get onto this Braum, but not gonna quite be in range for that one. Braum's gonna escape with his life, but solid kill coming out of Deft right there. I'm not entirely sure where the Unbreakable was from Braum. He probably already used it in kind of the earlier stages of that fight, but looks like Azir getting away from the Aurelion Sol and also the Zed. But Kha'Zix is now here, probably going to jump over the wall, trying to solo. Look at the damage! 3/4 of his HP done in one combo. The Zed now trying to take down the Kha'Zix as revenge. It's going to use the ultimate, but the Azir ultimate is going to come out immediately afterwards. It's not going to be enough to pick him up either, but Aurelia coming over the Raptor wall is going to be enough, and another dash onto the Azir to pick up her double kill. Now Trundle running for his life. His ultimate is still available, but it looks like the crescendo has been used from Sona. Braum now going to use his ultimate. That Glacial Fissure is going to slow them down, but is it going to be enough to keep Aurelia at bay? No, but I think the Lucian is going to be enough to keep her at bay. Now it looks like the culling coming out from the Lucian onto the Sona. The Q is going to land. Do they have a dash available? No! And Lucian is not going to pick up the kill onto the Sona, but a lot being burned in that team fight. What can you say about that one? Irelia picking up her 6th kill just in the right place at the right time, it seemed. Didn't even have to use her TP to get into that one. Just happened to be at the Raptor buff with a low target person to dash to over the wall. So picking up 2 kills in that fight. I feel like Irelia probably one of those champions that you really want to have the kills on. But right now, the Galaxy coming out from Aurelion Sol using that W. Irelia now doing a lot of damage to Trundle, and that is going to be a killing spree again for the Irelia, sitting at 7-1-0. You know that phrase, better nerf Irelia? Well, oh! Zed picked it up! A stolen red buff from the Zed with a clutch ward on Kha'Zix's red buff. Very, very nicely done. Sometimes in solo queue, you feel like those are sometimes the most important moments, because that's what gets people on tilt, right? you're a jungler, you have isolation damage, and you didn't use it for the execute on the red buff. So that is an impressive steal, 4 HP on the red buff, and it looks like he just managed to pick it up. Nice little juke coming out of Sona there onto the Braum Q. We got some pretty big juke shoes on a lot of these members of the red team, but like, oh my goodness, Lucian is nearly dead. An arcane shift and an auto attack would probably kill him. He doesn't have his heal up either, so Lucian has to go B, but it looks like Kha'Zix jumping in onto Deft. Look at the damage, having to burn the exhaust immediately onto Kha'Zix just to try to keep Deft alive for a couple seconds. Deft does stay alive long enough to take down the first tier turret of the mid lane, but we are seeing now Kha'Zix damage is taking down 3/4 of Deft's health in one combo. That was insane. A great Emperor's Divide onto the Aurelion Sol. It looks like he has to use his ultimate to try to get people away from him, but the stun is going to land onto Pawn. Kha'Zix going to pick up his 8th kill of the game, basically off of a fantastic engage coming out of the Azir. Using those Sand Soldiers to get behind the Aurelion Sol and then pushing him back with his ultimate, and that is going to be a very easy kill. Oh no, Zed now in a little bit of a precarious situation. Does manage to pick up a kill before he goes down, but of course it's not worth it in the fact that he only got 1 kill and the enemy team got a kill and 2 assists to boot. So, well, you know, at least you went down swinging, Zed. That's all that we could ask for. But it looks like, so when you look at the scores, okay, 12-9, not really that big of a lead in favor of the red team, but you know, 31k to 26.6k, pretty substantial gold lead. Irelia is going pretty ham for that kill, but not actually going to get there in time. The Kha'Zix is at this point going to be taking down the dragon, I think, with the help of the Lucian. Look at the damage coming out of the Irelia as well, but Kha'Zix is now here with double buff, sitting at 9-3-0. Pretty sure that he needs to go B. I'm thinking he's sitting on a lot of gold. Let's see. Wow, he's sitting on almost 2,000 gold. So yeah, I would think that Kha'Zix should be going B pretty soon to pick up, probably from the looks of it, looks like it might be a Ghost Blade with those 2 longswords in his inventory, plus the serrated dirk. I'm thinking probably going to be finishing off that Ghost Blade when he goes back. But we are seeing just an insane amount of damage out of the major carries. And you know what, the funny thing that you look at this, if I was the red team right now, I would actually be feeling pretty good about my odds of winning this game, because the one thing that I always say in this game, especially when I'm playing solo queue, is right now all of the kills, and I mean legitimately all of the kills for the blue side, are on Kha'Zix. Which is great because he's a phenomenal bursty champion who can pretty much one-shot anybody on this team right now. However, actually, I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, because it looks like the ultimate coming out of the Zed doing a lot of damage to the Kha'Zix. Ezreal is now here for the backup, but it looks like the Ignite is going to be enough to pick down that Kha'Zix. So very, very nice play coming out of the Zed, using his ultimate right when Kha'Zix jumped in to avoid the majority of that burst damage that we were just talking about. But as I was saying before, if you kill the Kha'Zix, who's 9-4 right now, the enemy team has no damage. Looks like Aurelion Sol jumping over with his E, using his ultimate onto the Lucian to take him pretty low. We do now have a lot of people down here, but we don't have the Irelia. She does not have her TP available, so she can't really join in on this one. But the crescendo coming out on 2 members. It looks like the Trundle is going to get hit by the Arcane Barrage as well. It looks like the Zed Shuriken is going to be enough from that Ghost to pick up the Braum. Now it looks like Azir trying to get in on this one, using his ultimate, but it looks like the Ignite from the Sona is going to be able to pick that one up. Pawn is not going to go down, but it is going to be a kill secure from Death onto the Lucian, and that is going to be what, an overall 4-for-0 trade plus a turret in favor of the red team. Very, very well played, and that was without your fed champion Irelia. And so what I was saying before is that's exactly what I meant, is that if you use an exhaust or kill the Kha'Zix, there is no damage really coming out of that blue side. Nobody has any kills, and people barely have assists. They're mostly losing in farm, so you need that Kha'Zix to stay alive. But now you're looking at the red team, and yes, your Irelia was phenomenally fed. 7-1-0, she still is, and doing a ton of damage. But you now have people 2-4-9 on Aurelion Sol, 3-2-4 on Zed, 2-1-6 and 2-1-6 for Sona and Ezreal. Like, you have a lot of people with a lot of damage, but we're now seeing the clash of the Titans here. Irelia versus the Kha'Zix, not going to be enough to quite pick him up, but is going to flash and get the kill on that one. So when it comes to the clash of Titans, Irelia seems to be the one to be able to clean that one up, having a flash for that kill. But to be honest, that's fair, because, you know, Kha'Zix had support. He had the Azir and the Braum there at the beginning. But looks like Zed having to burn the ultimate onto the Lucian. The Unbreakable was not available, but looks like the Zed ultimate is going to be enough to pick him up after Pawn's ultimate trying to get the kill onto the Braum with his W, but just sadly not going to be enough, and that is going to be a kill for the Braum onto the Aurelion Sol. Probably not the person that you wanted the kill on, but you know, you got to take kills when you can get them, right? And they have not seen a kill in quite some time on another member, so that is probably a good idea to get some kills. But Irelia now kind of going around, making the jungle her home, trying to take as many buffs as possible, already taking the red buff, and now looking at the blue buff, can definitely solo this Azir, but a lot of damage coming down, and here comes the Kha'Zix, and oh man, sorry Irelia, but if you're at half HP already and the Kha'Zix jumps on you, I don't think you can survive that one. That is a mad amount of isolation damage. But we're now looking at 18 to 12 for the kill score line, 42.3k to 33.9k, almost at that 10,000 gold lead mark, which I like to consider kind of that flame horizon, right? You're allowed to kind of flame your team at that point. But it looks like the blue team might actually be setting up for a Baron here. Of course, Kha'Zix takes down the Baron phenomenally fast because of that isolation damage, and since he's the Fed member of this team, does take it down incredibly quick. But the red team is aware of this. They do have this warded, and it looks like the Sona is kind of poking from the tail end of this. Sona getting in there to flash crescendo onto the Trundle, and also the Braum picking up the kill on that one. Kha'Zix is trying to kill this Baron. He does manage to take it down, but has to pay with it with his life. Ezreal picking up that one with a very long-range Mystic shot, but amazing out of Kha'Zix to keep his cool on that one. It looks like Azir is trying to get out of this one, but the ultimate coming out from Aurelion Sol is going to be enough to pick that one up. I believe it's only the Lucian now that has the Baron buff, but hey, you know, at least somebody on your team has Baron buff. The question now is, how does the red team punish the fact that 4 members are currently down? I think they're going to try to aim for some turrets, maybe that bottom inhibitor with the Zed. And that's exactly what they're doing. They are pushing that one down. Not entirely sure if he's going to get it. Well, it's only the Braum. And it looks like Lucian trying to pick a fight with this Aurelion Sol, but you don't want to pick a fight with the Irelia who's right behind you. Yeah, that's going to be one dead Lucian. So now it's just the Braum and the Trundle alive. Kha'Zix has now finally revived, but it looks like the red side is going to be taking down that second tier turret in the mid lane. Irelia might be taken down by this Kha'Zix. You don't want to get isolated. Remember, you want to stay in those minions against that Kha'Zix, and that's why not a lot of damage happened in that first initial go. But Kha'Zix is looking like he's kind of searching for this Irelia. I don't know who. No, oh god. I think Irelia might win this one, but maybe if the Trundle comes in and he doesn't have his ultimate available, and that is going to be a shutdown. So close to killing that Kha'Zix, but just not enough. Trundle picking up the shutdown onto the Irelia. That's actually Trundle's first kill of the game. So yeah, sadly when that Irelia got really fed, the Trundle kind of had a difficult time dealing with her. You can't really blame him for that, right? It was like a 7-1 Irelia back in the lane, so I don't blame Trundle for not having a fantastic time on that one. And you know what? Irelia also got a lot of attention from Aurelion Sol. Pawn really kind of showing some favor to his Fed member. But given a lot of pretty solid ganks, so considering that Pawn is a mid laner, he's been playing a pretty solid jungle Aurelion, right? 2, 5, and 15 more assists than the support, so very, very well done. I would definitely say that. And look at the pink wards right now on the red side. So one thing I can say about kind of like pro gamers and things like that that you don't see in regular solo queue, but can't really talk about that right now because it looks like we might have a fight going on. The Azir trying to find an ultimate, but it looks like the ultimate coming out of Zed onto the Kha'Zix. The Glacial Fissure missing absolutely everybody. Aurelion Sol picking up the Azir, and Lucian being locked down by the Crescendo coming out of the Sona. Trundle now taking a lot of damage, but it looks like the Zed is not actually going to die to the Trundle, and the Braum is going to die as well. That was a 4-for-0 exchange, only the Kha'Zix making it out of it with his life. So very, very well played from the red team. And once again, though, that was without the Irelia. I can't stress that enough. That is your most fed member on your team, and you're still able to pick up a 4-for-0 exchange. Incredibly well played by the red team. And now that they have their Irelia with it, they have 12 seconds on the Azir, 9 seconds seemingly on everybody else. I don't know if they're going to be able to win the game off of this, but they can at least get one turret. Looks like the Aurelion Sol trying to just lock everybody down in the fountain, doing a lot of damage, just trying to keep them in there, but it looks like the Kha'Zix is going to jump in, is going to get the kill, finishing blow with that W. It looks like the red team is now onto the Nexus, but they might be able to hold this one off. It looks like a lot of people going down, and it looks like the red team does not have enough to actually take down the Nexus. A killing spree for the Zed, but is going to be taken down by the Azir, picking up a double kill during this fight, and Deft and Sona now running for their lives, not having enough to pick off the Nexus, but, you know, taking down those 2 Nexus turrets, pretty damn impressive, but the Trundle is on hot pursuit with the Azir and also the Lucian. Deft might be in a little bit of trouble here, but the speed up's coming out of the Sona, who is on very, very low mana, might not be able to speed them up forever. Deft just trying to pick off as many pod shot arcane blast as possible. Here comes the Azir though. The crescendo is gonna miss, but so is the Emperor's Divide. Both ultimates whiffing completely with a great dodge coming out of Deft. And now Deft is trying to do as much damage as possible and manages to make a trade happen onto the Lucian. So very, very well played from Deft, managing to at least pick up a kill off the tail end of that one. But one thing that I did want to bring up, Deft not building, oh man, here we go. We've seen this story before, folks. Teleport coming in from Irelia, probably going to pick up a fairly easy kill onto this Braum. That is going to be one dead support. Deft not going for the standard build on Ezreal that we normally see. Looks like we have another attack going on, but Kha'Zix is now here. The ultimate coming down from Aurelion Sol, going to push them all away. Once again, you don't really want to be separated here. But once again, the damage coming down and also the Rylai's Crystal Scepter on those W's, making sure that the Trundle stays in range. But we're seeing not the standard Iceborne Gauntlets build into the Mirror Mana from the Ezreal. Deft chooses to go for the Triforce Blade of the Rune King into the Mirror Mana. So kind of an interesting build overall from Ezreal. Kind of wondering why he chose to go that route rather than what we consider the standard Iceborne Gauntlets Ezreal. Maybe just likes that little bit of additional burst damage coming out of the Trinity Force. But that's what you get, and that's why I like watching professional games, right? Seeing what the differences are. Looks like Kha'Zix was able to steal that blue buff away. The Emperor's Divide coming out onto the Irelia now, but Irelia going right back in onto the Azir. Not enough to pick him up, but the Syrinx Gauge activating with the Ravenous Hydra was almost enough to pick up that Azir, but not quite enough. Really all the red team needs right now is one solid engage. It looks like the crescendo going down onto the Kha'Zix, the death mark going down as well. This should be enough to pick up the Kha'Zix. He is going to go down to the hands of the Sona, and now Aurelion Sol getting a lot of damage onto the Lucian to pick that one up. The W is not quite landing on anybody to get those Rylai's slow procs off. He's trying to get in range, does now finally hit the two members to slow them down. The Galaxy is going to not really land on the Braum, but is going to get the kill with the W. Aurelion Sol picking that one up, and now Deft is here with Sona, with Zed, with Aurelion, and that is going to be probably the end of the game here, unless they want to pad their KDA with a couple fountain kills, but don't want to die in the fountain. But there we go, Zed picking up the Azir in the fountain and now going to execute himself on the fountain as well. Seems as though there's just as much BM in the Korean servers as there is in the NA and EU West servers, but that is finally going to be the end of the game. The Super Minions taking down that Nexus. So once again, guys, thank you guys so much for watching this. Hopefully you guys did enjoy the commentary on EDG's Deft and EDG's Pawn. Definitely an awesome Korean solo queue game with a lot of really amazing plays and tactics coming out of both of these two teams. So once again, guys, thank you guys so much for liking, watching, commenting, subscribing, and sharing this video with your friends if you enjoyed it. Be sure to follow me at TwiggerLol on Twitter if you guys want to know any updates about my channel or when I release videos and when I stream. And by streaming, I also mean follow me on Twitch, which is TwiggerLol as well. I'll have both the links in the description below. Thank you guys and gals for watching. I love you all, and I will see you all in the next video.